I don't know if you ever thought of the question, but is it a mitzvah to live in Israel? Because you might come across people, I don't want to say Haredi or others, black hats that would say, what's the difference if you live here or in America? That's fine. Well, they should know what the Torah itself says. And the Torah in the book of Bamidbar, Numbers, it says there in chapter 33, we just spoke about Lag BaOmer, Lag is 33. In chapter 33, verse 53, it says there, Vehorashtem et haaretz vishavtem ba, ki lachem natati et haaretz lareshet ota. It is God speaking to Moses saying, you must tell the whole Jewish nation that you are about to enter the Holy Land. And once you enter the Holy Land, be careful. Don't have mercy on those people living there. Get rid of all of them because they're going to have bad influence on you in terms of idol worshiping. And you must kill all the idol worshiping and worshippers and all the idols that they have there. And you must conquer the land. The Ramban, Rabbi Moshe, son of Nachman, more than 800 years ago, he learned from that verse that the mitzvah of conquering the land of Israel is not only for then and there, but also forever. It is a mitzvah forever that we must conquer the Holy Land, and not only that, we must live in it. We mustn't leave it for others. You know, you don't just get rid of the enemies, but you also have to make it your home. The Ramban says it in two places. First time as a commentary on that verse that we just quoted, but secondly, when he counts all the mitzvot of the Torah, he says the fourth mitzvah, שניצטווינו לרשת הארץ אשר נתן האל יתברך ויתעלה לאבותינו, לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב. It is our mitzvah to conquer that land, ולא נעזבה, and you mustn't leave it for others. You mustn't leave it barren. You mustn't leave it without anyone living there. You must stay there. That's what the mitzvah is. So it's a mitzvah for every Jewish person. So we're lucky to do this mitzvah by living here. We do a big mitzvah that, I'm excited about it because my great-grandfather and all the generations before that for 2,000 years could only dream of doing that. And we are happy that we're privileged to be able to do that. And we live in this day and age that it's possible. So it's a mitzvah of today, not only the Ramban. I can give you other rabbis that quotes that and says, yes, it is a mitzvah to live in Israel. I want to ask a few questions and try to understand when we come to talk about Yom Haatzmaut, why do we celebrate on Yom Haatzmaut? I understand that it's a mitzvah to live in Israel, it's a mitzvah to conquer the land, but why is the date for the celebration the 5th of the month of Iyar? Why Hey Be'Iyar? You know, on Hey Be'Iyar, what happened? It was the declaration, declaration of independence. And yet after that, the war started. And no one promised that the war was going to end nicely. Why would they so quick to declare this is the right time? And this is the time for announce as a day of celebration. I'm coming as a rabbi, as a religious Jew. I look at this festival, not just, I'm also an Israeli. And as an Israeli, we must do the mitzvah of the day of the barbecue and all of the, they speak about in the past few days, they talk about the fireworks, that maybe it's not so nice. Soon, when we're going to meet in 10 years' time, there'll be no more fireworks in Israel probably, because they're just going to do laser, whatever things, because apparently the sound, the noise drive people crazy, especially those who've been through wars and have memories from there. So they trying to be more considerate and not go there. But and it's starting from this year that the government won't do fireworks, and it's a big thing. You have to understand, it's a big thing for Israelis because we're all waiting for that. So I think in most places, there still will be, but in the future, I assume they will find substitutes of fireworks without the noise, or maybe other things. That's what's going to be. But yes, I'm very much for those beautiful events, and I'm very proud of the flag, and and I put a flag on my house and on my car, and it's all very important. But let's see from the Jewish side, why was this date so important? Why was it chosen? So the chief rabbi of Israel at the time of the Independence Day, the Sephardi rabbi was Rav Uziel ben Zion Chai Uziel. He was what is called Rishon LeZion, the Sephardi chief rabbi of Israel, and he wrote, and I'm not going to read what he wrote. I'm just going to say it in my words, because it's very important to see all those points that he pointed out to say, why is it important to choose that date and not anything else? The date is the 5th of Iyar. Interestingly, we hardly celebrate Yomatsmaut on the 5th of Iyar, because when the 5th of Iyar is a Friday, like it is this year, or it's a Saturday, or I don't know if it's possible, or it's a Sunday, whatever, then we don't do that. Then we make the celebration earlier. The reason is we don't want any desecrating of Shabbat. We don't want any problems with people breaking Shabbat. So we don't want to celebrate Yom Haatzmaut on Friday. That's why it's been moved to Thursday, and that's what we do. But the 5th of Iyar, that's the date that it should be, is that's the day that should be Yom Haatzmaut. The reason is that when we got, when we announced Ben Gurion and the guys there, when we announced the declaration of the State of Israel, then it's after 2,500 years, we don't have any more other countries ruling us. It was the end of the British mandate that was ruling here in Israel just the day after, and Israel formally became a Jewish state. We can do what we want. 2 weeks later, there'll be an Israeli army. Until then, there were all those machtarot, the Etzel, the Lechi, all those, the Palmach, the Haganah, but then they all combined into one Israeli army. That was just a few weeks after the establishment of the State of Israel. And really, the State of Israel is a real salvation. We were really saved from real death, and that's from many angles. Not only from having an army that make us all united and combined, and we can fight together against the enemies around us here, but also, if you remember, all those Holocaust survivors that those poor people that skin and bones that were just survived, one from a family and two from a town, and they coming to Israel, and the British tell them, you're not welcome here, go to Cyprus, go somewhere else, and they kept them some. I don't know if you know the history of the Zionist times. And so from now that we declare the State of Israel, then we don't push away, and we don't turn down any Jewish person. From then and until today, any Jew who wants to make Aliyah from anywhere in the world is welcome, and that's something big. It's a reason to celebrate. The gates of Israel were open freely for the Jews to come to Israel, and we became a nation like all the other nations. We are one of those states that not only we are a state like everybody else, sorry, but we see that we have a special goal. As it's called in the Torah, Am Sgula. We are this nation that sanctify God's name. The way we act in the world, there is no other nation that do the same. I don't know if I should be proud or upset, but since the time I was in the army and until today, I always pay attention to those things, how we fight compared to other countries. And I'm not talking about dictatorship like whatever Putin is just decided to kill half Ukraine. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about even America. The big democracy that decided when they decide to go on Iraq or Afghanistan or whatever, and they take all the journalists out and they wipe out whatever they kill whoever they can, and they don't care about anything. But Israel, I can tell you that my brother's commander was killed because they were told that in that house in Gaza, it was a few years ago, in that house in Gaza, there were terrorists. But every other army in the world, okay, maybe I'm going to call you out, surrender, but if you don't want to come out, I'm going to put a bomb on this whole house, and that's it. But not the Israeli army, because we know those terrorists are hiding behind civilians. And so our army, and to do the same, we do it all the time. We had to go room by room, risking our lives, so we won't put civilians' life in danger, because those terrorists are hiding behind them. And unlucky for my brother's commander that there was terrorists hiding there and shot him as he came into the room, not shooting anyone because he was looking after those things. And that's us. So I'm saying I don't have to be proud or upset, or maybe both at the same time, but we some kind of a light onto the other nations. We represent some kind of moral and values that other people don't do. But even for the Jewish people, since the establishment of the state of Israel, every Jew in the world can sleep better knowing that he can always have a place to fall down to. Like there's always a place that they can come and be welcome. And that's what Israel is about. And that's since that day of declaration that they did the unheard of. I wish, I don't want to talk too much politics, but again, it upset me what's happening those days, that I don't know what Bennett promised Mahmoud Abbas, that you know what, you have your last week of Ramadan, take Temple Mount, and I won't go in there and with my police, and you do what you want. And they do what they want. And I don't know if you saw today those big signs that they put up, that they feel it's their home, they feel that they do what they want. We don't show what is called in Hebrew meshilut. We don't show that we are the one ruling. But it wasn't the same when we established the state of Israel. In establishment of the state of Israel, it was even America, the great United States, who said to Ben Gurion, don't you dare declare this state of Israel. Wait until everything comes down. But we know the history here. And we know that if we had to wait, we would never have a state. And they announced the state of Israel, אנו מכריזים בזאת על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל, היא מדינת ישראל. And it was a great risk, because all the nations, the Arab nations around us, said, if you declare that, we're going to come and invade and kill you all. And they tried. They stood up for what they said, and they tried to kill us all. Luckily, with God's help, that we managed to, with very little army and very little training and very little weapons, we managed to win that war. And it's quite amazing. It's quite amazing. It's all started on the 5th of Iyar, the day of Yom Haatzmaut. I want to show you some beautiful idea. I don't know if you heard of it. It's very famous, but maybe you didn't hear of it, and I have to tell you this. There was a rabbi 750 years ago called Rabbi Yaakov ben Harosh. He wrote a book called Baal HaTurim. He's also called Baal HaTurim. And he takes the Hebrew letters and language, and he plays with the words, and it's beautifully done. And one of those things that he plays with, and he realized that there's a thing called atbash. Listen carefully. If you write the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet in a row, and you write next to it the Hebrew alphabet from bottom to top, right? So we have two lines, one from the top to bottom, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, and one from the bottom to the top. So Aleph will be next to Taf, and Bet will be next to Shin. That is called Atbash. and Gimel will be next to Resh. So the third letter from the top will be next to the third letter from the bottom. Are you following? That's what's called Atbash. And you realized that if you take the festival of our, the first festival that made us into a nation, the festival of Pesach. If you take that festival of Pesach, and Pesach has got 7 days, and each day of the festival of Pesach coincides and represents and is attached to another date in the Jewish calendar according to the Atbash. Let me show you. Aleph, the first day of Pesach, is with Taf. And what does the Taf represent? Taf is Tisha B'Av. The 9th of Av, start with a Taf. The 9th of Av is the saddest day in the Jewish calendar. And that means that every year, the same day that the first day of Pesach will be, it will be the same day of the week that Tisha B'Av will be. Please check me on this. You remember, it was just a few weeks ago, that the first day of Pesach was Shabbat. I'm telling you that Tisha B'Av this year will be on Shabbat because it coincides, the Aleph and the Taf. Now, just in brackets, I will say, we never fast on Shabbat except for Yom Kippur. So Tisha B'Av, when it happens to be on Shabbat, we push it away. Note, when a nice festival falls on Shabbat, like Yom Haatzmaut on a Friday, we bring it earlier. When a fast day falls on Shabbat, we push it further. Why? Because maybe Mashiach will come in between and there will be a temple built and we don't want to fast for nothing. So we want to push those fast days as further away as possible. So Tisha B'Av will be on Sunday, although the 9th of Av, the 9th of the Jewish calendar, in the 9th of the Jewish month Av, will actually be on Saturday. The Bet, the second day of Pesach, is coinciding with Shin, right? Shin represents the festival of Shavuot. Check me on it, and you'll see that the second day Pesach was a Sunday. The first day, the only day of Shavuot in Israel, will be on a Sunday. So you can tell all those festivals, and you can tell in advance, and you know that this year we're going to have 2 days in a row of Shavuot. Luckily, we are not outside of Israel because there they're going to have 3 days, Shabbat, Sunday, and Monday. We know because Shavuot is 2 days outside of Israel. It's only 1 day in Israel. And so we're going to celebrate from Friday night and until Sunday night, 50 hours of no driving. That's what I'm going to be on Shavuot. And how do I know it? And I didn't check my calendar. I'm telling you, it's a given. It's known because the second day Pesach is always the day of Shavuot. The third day Pesach always coincides with Gimel is third. The third letter from the bottom is Reish. Reish is Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah will always be on the same day of the week that the third day Pesach is. And let me carry on because I want to move to a few other things. The fourth day Pesach is the same Kuf. Kuf is Kriyat Torah, reading from the Torah. That's a festival which we call today Simchat Torah. The word Simchat Torah is not in the Torah. The Torah doesn't call that festival Simchat Torah. We put the celebration of the Torah, that we finish reading the cycle of the Torah and starting again on that festival that ends the festival of Sukkot. That's on Simchat Torah. So Simchat Torah is always the same day of the week that the fourth day Pesach. The fifth day Pesach is coincide with the letter Tzadik. Hey is Tzadik, right? 5 from the bottom is Tzadik, and that's Tzom. Tzom is a fast day. Tzom, we call the only fast day from the Torah, is Yom Kippur. The sixth day Pesach is always with the letter Pei, that's Purim. Purim will always be on the same day of the week that the sixth day Pesach will be. Listen carefully. Baal HaTurim got stuck. He loved his idea. 700 years ago already, he said But wait, what about the last day Pesach? That's the Zayin, is a seventh day Pesach. We have the Ain, the seven letters from the bottom is Ain. What's going to be for the Ain? We don't have any festival in Ain. So what are we going to do? And he already knew that there will be a festival. And that's exactly Atzmaut. Yom Haatzmaut is exactly we today are lucky to finish this whole picture. And it's beautifully done that we know that the Ashbash is now complete, because for 3,260 years since the coming out of Egypt and until the 5th day of Iyar, 1948, the 7th day Pesach had no partner. It didn't have a pair, but only since Yomatsuma that it stopped being an often, and we have the pair of it, and we have Yomatsuma coming with it. It was exactly 74 years ago that we declared the independence of the state of Israel. After so many years, we didn't have independence. I think that's quite a beautiful idea, and it's quite amazing. And it's not only that, it's deeper than that. It's not just that the 7th day Pesach is the same, there's 7 letters from the bottom, and it's Ain, is Zayin. No, it's much deeper than that. On the 7th day Pesach is actually, we can say, that's the first day of independence for the Jewish nation. What happened on the 7th day Pesach historically is the splitting of the Sea of Reeds, and the Jews go through the water, and the Egyptians follow them, and it closes on them. All happened on the 7th day Pesach. That day that was chosen by God to drown all the Egyptians and for the Jews to finally feel free and independent is the same day of independence for the Jewish people many years later. Identical twins. On that first Yom Haatzmaut, it was that day that Nachshon ben Aminadav from the tribe of Yehuda, he jumped into the sea and the sea split. Exactly that day, our Nachshons, those big leaders of the Jewish people that declared the state of Israel, took this huge risk, just like Nachshon ben Aminadav. And it's beautifully how we see it, that the 7th day Pesach, the first Independence Day, came after more than 200 years of slavery in Egypt. And we coming to the Yom Haatzmaut of ours after almost 2,000 years of darkness, of exile. And we coming, since the Bar Kokhba revolt, Bar Kokhba had a very short period of time of Jewish independence at the year 130 CE, right? AC, whatever it's called. That's what we had from the year until 135, 136. But for almost 2,000 years, we didn't have our own land. And finally, we got it back. And you asking me if we should thank God for it? And you asking me if we should shave on that day? Surely we should. What can be a bigger festival than that? And there will always be those people that would not recognize the miracle. It was already the Midrash so many years ago that said, at the time of the Exodus of Egypt, it was those mourners, not mourners, those who moan, those who complain, the complainers that said, in Egypt we had to deal with the cement, we built those pyramids, and here in the sea again we walk in this mud like the cement. What is this? Those complainers will always stay complainers, and we have them today again. We have people from all kinds of Jews. We have those who are from the Haredi side that don't recognize that day. Those who have the black hats that waiting for Mashiach to come to be able to celebrate the coming back to Israel. And I'm telling you, big mistake. What can be a bigger sign from God? All those wars of independence and the fact that we here against all odds and against all the enemies around us, like a little sheep with all the 70 wolves around, and we managed to survive and thrive, not just survive, and beautifully. And how can you not thank God for it? And there was a person who made those mistakes of not thanking God so many years ago. I don't know how well you know the Tanakh, but there's a story about Sancheriv, the king of Ashur, the Assyrian king. He threw into exile the 10 tribes, and after that he comes to conquer Jerusalem and Judah. And he put his siege around Jerusalem. It's all in the Tanakh. You should read the Bible. And Chizkiyahu, the king in Judah, he cries and he prays to God, please help me. And there is no hope. There is no chance. The king Sancheriv shouts from beyond the walls, if I'll give you however many horses, I'll give you horses to fight. Do you even have any fighters? Do you have any soldiers to put on those horses? You don't have a chance, just surrender. And he was right. But Chizkiyahu cried and prayed, and God said, leave it to me, I'm going to help you. And that night, there was a huge plague that came. 185,000 of the soldiers of the Assyrians died that night, and the rest ran away. Jerusalem was saved. There'll be more than 100 years for the temple to carry on standing just because of that, because he didn't give up hope. But he made one mistake he made. He did not sing the Hallel. He did not. Chizkiyahu, the king of Yehuda, did not sing the song of praise to God. How dare you not say thank you for what you received? And the rabbi said it was such a mistake because Chizkiyahu could have been the Mashiach. And Sancheriv was Gog and Magog, and all those big wars that we know should come at the end of the years, and it didn't happen. And it didn't thank God, and so it didn't really work. And the salvation will be kept for a few more thousand years to our time. And we will not make that mistake, and we will say thank you to God, and we will shave on Yom Haatzmaut, because we need to say this is a festival. This is time to thank God. And it's not only the Charedim that don't recognize that miracle of Yom Haatzmaut. Unfortunately, it's also some of the Chilonim, those who are non-religious. The less religious people in Israel, I told you that on Hanukkah, Hanukkah is the festival that was loved by the first Zionists 100 years ago so much that there's so many children's songs for Hanukkah. But what did they sing? One of those lines. I told you this, I'm going to say it again. Nes lo kara lanu pach shemen lo matzanu. What do they sing? We came here to Israel, but we had no miracle. We haven't found this little jug of oil that will save us. No, we used our own strength, and we managed to few against many, and we managed to do it without God's help. How can you say that? How can you not recognize that it's all from God? How can you not recognize that it's a huge miracle that the Jews coming back to Israel after so many years? How can you not recognize all those things? Yes, there were others that did. Others wrote other things that are more relevant and more beautiful, but some people didn't. I was thinking of 74 years. 74 in Hebrew is Ayin Daled. And I think we have to have Ayin. Ayin is an eye. Ayin Drucha. Be ready, be prepared. Daruch. Get ready. And the Ayin Daled, we have to open our eyes and watch around us and see what's happening here. When someone is sick, the longer the sickness is, the longer the disease is, that's how long will take to heal. Sometimes, it's if you've been ill for a long time, then it takes a long time to recover. How much more so from illness of the soul, and how much more so of illness of a whole nation. We have been sick for 2,000 years. We've been in exile out of, like a fish out of water for 2,000 years. And luckily, in the past 100 years, the healing process started. And we start coming back to Israel, and we make huge steps towards our complete redemption. So we definitely have to recognize it. We definitely have to open our eyes and see what God has given us, and recognize those huge miracles. And so, yes, we have to say that special prayers like any other festival. It says in the Talmud that we had 48 prophets and 7 prophetesses. I think I told this before, but there were 7 women prophets, prophetesses, and 48 prophets in the whole Tanakh. And the Talmud says that they never said anything new. All they said always was, listen to the Torah. Do as God said in the Torah. That's all what the prophet says, except for one thing. There's one exception that the prophets said we should add, and that is the festival of Purim. The prophets, after the Torah, after the story of Purim, told us to read the Megillah, Megillat Esther. That's what it's about. And the rabbis there ask, if Purim is so important, why don't we say this beautiful song of praise, the Hallel, as we do on Sukkot, on Shavuot, on Chanukah? Why don't we say that song of praise on Purim? The answer they give is very strong. Yes, we were saved from death to life. The decree of Haman did not succeed and we were saved. But there was nothing changed in terms of Israel. The miracle of Purim happened outside of Israel, and the fact that they were saved from Haman's decree did not give us any ability to go back to Israel and make up this new land. No, it didn't work like that. And so there's no reason to say the Hallel. Nothing has changed in terms of Israel. But today, that you were saved from death to life, and it's all in Israel, surely we should say the Hallel. Surely we should not be ungrateful to God. Surely we should not be like Chizkiyahu, the righteous king of Judah, that did not say thank you to God. And it's no wonder that rabbis that realize that. I'm just going to quote from one, Rav Meshulam Rata, big rabbi of 60 years ago, right after the state of Israel was established already. He says, there is no doubt that the 5th of Iyar, that day that was made by the government, and the rabbis agreed to it, is a huge day of miracle that we have to make it a day of celebration, of saying the Hallel, and we became free, and we got our independence. We were saved from death to life, and surely we must make it a Yom Tov. I want to end off just by one beautiful idea that I read. Rav Netanel Yosifun, he writes that once there was a big Hasidic rabbi from the rabbis of Ger, the Gur Hasidim, and someone told him very happy, my first grandson was born. So the rabbi was sharp. He turned to him and he says to him, Mazel Tov, you now became human. So the man was puzzled. What do you mean I became human? I was human all my life. What do you mean I became human? What's the story? So the rabbi told him, that only us people among this whole nature, we are the only ones to recognize our grandchildren. The only animal in the world that have some connection to the grandfather or grandchild is us, human beings. No other animal do that. And that's a very deep idea, because so too, among this whole animal kingdom, we are the only ones who think 2 steps ahead. when you come to hit a dog with a stick, the dog will attack the stick. When a man is attacked by a stick, then you don't fight back with the stick. You know the stick, there's someone that moved that stick, and you go to the source of it. You think 2 steps ahead, and you go to the hand that hits with the stick. And that's what it's all about. We have to think 2 steps ahead. We have to think like people, not like animals. We have to see that God runs the world, and we have this imagination and ability to see how God hides in nature and run the show. And that's maybe it's a difference between us Jews to other nations, at least the nation that were idol worshippers, that they believed in all those powers that they see now. They think the sea or the sun or whatever, they are idols, not realizing that those laws of nature, they are just the stick. They are just the ones that doing what they're supposed to be doing, but someone makes them do those things. There is a hand and a mind behind it, and that's God. So Abraham, the first Jew, he the one to realize that first. And he showed it to the whole world. And he brought this belief in one world, in one God. And when we came out of Egypt, maybe we showed it to the whole world. And we saw this huge miracle that happened then, all those 10 plagues were actually showing that nature is actually working for some bigger power. And so since Pesach, we're trying to show the world and ourselves that we have our independence, right? The 7th day Pesach, the first independence, to Yomatsmaut, the Zayin and the Ayin, this day and age independence. And so we have to thank God for what we received. And we have to see what's happening around us. And please God, we will have a Chag Sameach, and we will see that Yom Haatzmaut is a big day of celebration. So I'm going to shave, I'm going to say the Hallel, and I hope you do the same. That's all for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach. Chag Sameach.